Welcome to a special SEC Media Days edition of This Week in Auburn Sports. As always, I'm Plainsman Sports Editor Eric Wallace, joined by Plainsman Managing Editor Justin Ferguson.
This week's edition, we talk about all things SEC Media Days from the Auburn perspective. I mean, we're talking injuries, we're talking consequences, we're talking potato chips,
New leaders.
talking whatever this purse you brought to Hoover was.
It's not a purse, it's European. It's
okay. But, you know, all things Auburn football, it's as Spurrier says, Steve Spurrier says, it's talking season.
It's talking season. So let's get to it. Obviously, started off, biggest news, Nick Marshall picked up a marijuana citation in Reynolds, Georgia last Friday.
Yep.
Cost him a spot at SEC Media Days. Gus talked a lot about how that's a privileged role that someone earns, and unfortunately, Nick Marshall lost that. CJ Uzoma stepped in. He had a very good showing at SEC Media Days, I thought.
Always a good guy to talk to.
But that's a tough break for a senior really trying to establish himself as a leader on the team, trying to establish a candidacy for an All-American run potentially, maybe even a Heisman run.
Yep.
I've seen some people say. So it was really poor timing, honestly.
It's crazy to think that Marshall's probably the most experienced quarterback in the SEC coming back, and you know, he was going to be a big storyline at Media Days, and his absence was even a bigger one.
Absolutely.
And you know, Gus Malzahn said that Auburn was going to, you know, he was going to face consequences for it. Auburn's official drug policy doesn't command that you have to have misplaying time,
right,
that first offense.
They handle a lot of it in-house.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of just speculation, as always at this point.
Right.
You know, this is talking season. You got to talk about something. And you know, Nick Marshall, from what guys like CJ Uzoma, Reese Dismuke said, he's very remorseful. Gabe Wright said, you know, you can tell that he knows he made a mistake and he wants to fix that. And, you know, it's just something to keep your eye on for the next couple of weeks.
It really seemed like the guys were rallying around him, too.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
were all very supportive of him. They understand that he made a mistake. It's the second marijuana-related incident on the team. I know Gabe Wright talked a lot about the seniors coming together and just, you know, dealing with that in-house. But I really think that they seem to rally around Nick. So.
An even bigger storyline that I think didn't get as much attention that should get more attention was Carl Lawson.
Yeah, Carl Lawson, it was announced that he had torn an ACL in May and had successful surgery with Dr. James Andrews. That's probably the guy you want to see for something like that. But Lawson actually, he missed the A-Day game with what they said at the time was a knee injury. We now know that was a little bit something more serious than just a knee injury, but that's just a huge loss because he's such a talented player.
Yeah, Malzahn said they're hoping he's a fighter, and you know he's a guy who works really hard. He was in really good shape before the injury, and he said he expects him back toward the end of the year. And no one knows what that's going to be like. You talk about a guy who he was supposed to be the replacement for D Ford,
right,
as just that pure pass rusher that is going to give these inexperienced quarterbacks in the SEC fits. Now it's time for other guys to step up.
They have the talent. I mean, Gabe Wright, guys like Gabe Wright, Montravius Adams.
They can split out to the end. They're that athletic. That's a very athletic attacking four, and it's just mixing and moving not only on and off the field, but mixing and moving when you're on the field, you know, to different positions.
It still hurts losing a guy like Lawson.
Yeah. But it's a chance for guys like Elijah Daniel to step up. It's a chance for, you know, some of the other guys. Gamel President was another one. Just these, you know, relatively inexperienced defensive ends to step up and take their chance. Auburn signed a huge defensive line recruiting class this past year, so you got guys coming in, big guys like Justin Thornton, Andrew Williams.
So it wasn't the worst.
Might be those guys.
It wasn't the worst position group to have an injury.
No, not at all.
So.
Not at all. But I mean, you always want to keep guys like him healthy, and you know it's a tough injury that you can't prepare for, as Gabe Wright said.
On the positive end of the injury spectrum, a number of Auburn players received positive news. Jalen Denson and Justin Garrett both received medical hardship red shirts, so they'll get an extra year of eligibility after both of them missed either all of last season in Garrett's case. And
no, Garrett played a little bit.
Denson.
He had a few games.
Yeah, but
he was. But consistency. You talk about Garrett as one of the best players for Auburn's defense last spring. He was going to be the star, in Ellis Johnson's 4.25. He had a great game and got into fall, was doing well, and just foot injuries when he prescribed with flat feet.
Right.
And he ended up having to get corrected, but he ended up missing most of the season.
The emergence of Robinson DeReese kind of, overshadowed that injury.
But now you have Garrett for an extra year now.
Right.
And, he's got a guy who has versatility. That can play star again, or he can jump to a normal safety position, or he even has experience at linebacker.
Yeah. And Jalen Denson is also a guy who received a lot of praise at the receiver position.
He was the guy that everyone said was going to be the most consistent receiver Auburn had. And
just a trusted guy for
has
Marshall.
a terrible injury against LSU in the rain in Baton Rouge, and he's out for the season. But now he's back.
Yeah, so he'll have an extra season. Running back Peyton Barber, who impressed coaches a lot in spring practice, but unfortunately sprained his knee during the A-Day game on his first carry.
He's 100%.
100%. Working back out at 100% is what they said. So looks like there's going to be even more depth to that talented backfield. He's going to join guys like Rock Thomas, Cap, Corey Grant, just fighting for carries. Yep. So it's a really good break for him. A little bit more on the tactical side. I know the talk mostly between guys like C.J. Uzoma, Reese Dismukes, and Gus Malzahn was the improved balance Auburn is seeking this season.
Yeah, Auburn ran the ball 72% of the time last year, and that is not very common for an offense like Gus Malzahn's. You think about the Cam Newton season at Auburn in 2010. You think about the teams he had at Tulsa. They threw the ball a lot. It was still more toward the run, but not as much as Auburn had last year. And that read option game, power running game kind of took hold. They want that change this year. Marshall's had an off season to get prepared. To develop that accuracy he was kind of missing toward the beginning of the season.
Right.
And he's got a lot of weapons around him.
And one of those weapons, maybe an more unheralded weapon, is Reese Dismukes. He's a fourth-year returning senior, and he's just been a staple in that line. There's been a lot of changing pieces with Greg Robinson leaving and others, but Dismukes has been a staple there. And it's been really cool to see a guy like him who had a little bit of legal trouble earlier in his career just grow into a team leader role, as Malzahn said. And
they calls him the second quarterback.
Yeah, he's the second quarterback on the offensive line.
When you run an offense as quick as Auburn does, you want to have a center who can read and react just as well as your quarterback, and they have it in Dismukes. Marshall talked about last season how much Dismukes' presence helped him develop as a quarterback, and he's got one more year. I think he's the best center in the country. Yep. And
definitely the best in the conference, in my opinion.
Absolutely. But best center in the country, I think he's got one more year to get to that goal. He wants that national championship. He came in after Auburn's national championship season. He came close last year. He wants it this year, just like a very talented senior class for Auburn.
Mm-hmm. You talked about getting 13 seconds better, so you know that Florida State game is still lingering.
Yeah.
So, and other news from SEC Media Days, man, it's just a circus, by the way.
Yep.
If you ever get the chance to go, there's fans, random people showing up at
I think
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I think the only thing bigger than Lawson, than Marshall, than all of this is Golden Flake.
I was very disappointed not to see Golden Flake there. Yeah.
No longer a corporate sponsor of the SEC.
You count on that, like that's the kind of consistency you need in your life.
And when you think SEC, you think of potato chips. You think of Golden Flake.
Gotta get that right. I don't know.
It's over. It was a harsh reality we faced in Auburn.
The life, man. That's the life. You can't deal with it.
But
yeah, I mean, SEC Media Days is a circus. You got guys, Paul Feinbaum, ESPN's around.
The fan scene continues to be one of the funniest things to me.
The guy with the ring on his head,
yeah. And guys coming out on a random week in the middle of July to watch people talk about football.
So get ready for talking season, because you got to have talking season before you can have football season.
And football season's almost here.
Finally. Till next time, this has been This Week in Auburn Sports.